Hello and welcome to today's live stream, which is all about primary teachers' mental health during lockdown 3. So I put out a live stream last week and it led to some amazing conversations. Thank you so much to everyone who took part in them. And that's led me to be able to put together some notes and guidance, which I think people will find useful. I hope some people will find useful. So in a way, I think it's everything I wish people had told me when I started in teaching back in the last millennium. But here we go. So I think it's useful to have a diagram where you can locate yourself in here. So there are quite a few teachers who are in this okay zone. And if that's you, that's great. It's just there seem to be less of them than usual, so it's more relevant to talk about all this. And if you are in that okay zone, then please stay with me because I'm going to talk about, you've got such an important role to play in all this, and I'm actually going to talk about you first. And then there are all sorts of reasons why people may not be okay, but they're not here. And we need to talk about these and talk about how you navigate this and get yourself back to here rather than it escalating and you ending up down here. So teachers who are okay, let's talk about what that means. Well, if you're okay, that means with 2 weeks to go to half term, you can see how you're going to get there. You can imagine getting there, sleeping for a couple of days, just being exhausted, but then you feel like you're going to recover, you're going to be yourself over half term, you're going to get a chance to stand back from things. Typical teacher emotional ride. So here's some advice for you if you're in that zone, because you're so crucial to helping this situation. 5 key points. Number 1, keep investing in yourself. Stay okay. If you need to exercise to stay okay, whatever it is, step back and think about it and make sure you are staying okay first, because the other people in your community who would often be looking out for you probably aren't able to look out for you so well. So you have to look after yourself. Number 2 is keep an eye on your colleagues and offer them practical support. Now, even if you're only maybe 2 or 3 years into teaching, you might be the right person to mentor an NQT who's struggling. And you might be able to offer, if you're brilliant with the technology of teaching online, your senior team, your head teacher, your deputy heads, they may be struggling if they're doing more work away from the classroom and they're not doing it so much. So just look around and offer practical teaching help where you can. Right, watch out for the teachers or the members of staff who are likely to be in this zone here, who may simply need to take a day off work, make time to chat to a doctor or to someone else who can give them some good advice, sleep a bit in order to turn that around. So encourage those teachers who need to take a well-being day, whether it's a migraine or whatever, just a day off. Encourage them to do that because that makes such a difference in these situations. I'll explain a bit more shortly. Right, number 4 is crucial. Don't criticise any staff and stamp out criticism. So the kind of thing that I'm talking about here is it may be that a member of staff is not in school and they've made an excuse and they are not in school. And then someone sees them out and about outside their house in a way that contradicts the decision they've made to stay off school. And suddenly you've got a bitch fest going on. And that needs to stop. Because that teacher who's behaving in that way is clearly a teacher who's under massive stress. And you don't know what that stress is. They may be going through something truly horrific in their life. They may just be chaotic and all over the place just now and not living up to the standards of behaviour that they would normally wish to live up to. They may be out of their house because they desperately need to talk to someone. You don't know. Shut it down. This is not the time to deal with bad behaviour. Everyone is way beyond what they can cope with. Everyone's behaviour are below the minimum standards. Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. But a lot of people who would normally be really impressive members of staff are unravelling and are not able to keep up to the standards that they would normally set themselves. And you don't need to point that out now. If it's serious, then talk to a head teacher or a member of senior team about it and then let it go. And finally, point 5, if you're a member of staff who's okay, then you should be one of the members of staff who's looking at the forums, researching, evolving online teaching. There's got some great discussions going on about Wellbeing Wednesday, Flexible Fun Day Friday, that are taking the stress out of teachers and of the school community and of the children and of the parents as well. So if you're okay, here's some advice for you. I hope it's useful. Criticise me if it isn't, or make more suggestions in the comments. I'd really value everything you've got to say. Right, so what you've got here are the kind of situations that people get to in life if they are committed to making a positive difference, which most teachers are. All these situations happen. They've certainly all happened to me. So let's look at this one, sleep problems and exhaustion. So this is where someone's got really, really chaotic sleep still, and they're not sleeping properly, or they're simply not getting enough sleep. And they know that this isn't the normal cycle of teaching. They're aware that it's different. So it needs to be addressed, because that teacher is like to get to half term and not recover during half term. So when people have got chaotic sleep, some people may find that sleeping apps help. Some others may need a sleeping tablet. Others may need relaxation and discipline. They may well need a day off just to stand back and get their head around it, and possibly just to sleep when they need to sleep, to break the cycles that are going on here. And exhaustion, often in this situation, teachers are just doing too much, and their parents as well, or they've got commitments at home, and they are completely and utterly exhausted in an unhealthy way. And they're so exhausted they can't restructure what they're doing because they're too tired to think clearly. So again, a day off is really helpful if that can't be resolved at a weekend. Because if you don't deal with it, then you're going to get more serious problems. Anxiety and depression, that's where your negative thought cycles or your stress thought cycles start to take on a life of their own that's disconnected from the things that caused them. Again, this is serious. It needs to be addressed. You need to be talking to someone, especially if you feel you can't even talk about it because it's that bad. Then actually you are very close to here. So get help, get counselling. If you've got people in your life who are just incredibly wise and can help you, that's a great first step. But make time for it, or it's likely to get worse. Again, you may need a bit of time off just to make some space to deal with this, to stop it escalating out of control, and to get yourself comfortably back towards here rather than here. Lots of teachers feel they can't take some time off. Well, if you don't, you're likely to end up here, and that's much, much worse for everyone. You absolutely can. If you're struggling with these issues, you definitely can, and you should. Some teachers are really struggling with poor performance because they're not adapting well to the hybrid teaching, they're not coping very well, and that's really demoralising for them, and it can become a mental health issue. Older teachers, if they're struggling with the technology, they may be brilliant teachers, but they just haven't managed to adapt quickly. It can really eat away at your self-confidence. So, and NQTs maybe aren't getting the mentoring that they need just now that they would normally get, and the support. You've got to stand back and let it go. You can only be what you can be. And a lot of teachers are managing to do that. This box here is really for the teachers that it's beginning to get them down. Again, take time, stand back, deal with it as an issue. Relationship breakdowns. Now, that is to do with people just being under massive, massive stress. So a lot of people are struggling with their relationships at home and in the classroom and anywhere. Get yourself into an okay emotional zone. Get some sleep. Stand back from it. It may feel that it's all a disaster and it's all terminal, but you're probably too exhausted to be in a place where you can judge that rationally. With a lot of these issues, you want to think about not dealing with them until the end of half term. Look at them then. Look at them when you've had time to rest and walk and get fresh air and get some distance from things. Just try and keep yourself well enough that it doesn't all unravel just now. Grief. Now, grief is a big one. It's not just about bereavement, it's about loss of things you hope to be, hopes and dreams that haven't happened because of lockdown and now maybe never will. In ordinary times, teachers have quite a good cycle of holidays and breaks, and you could go away and take time to deal with stuff. And that just may not be possible just now. So we all need to acknowledge that we all still need time to grieve if we need to grieve, and somehow make space for that. Now, if you're listening to those and you're thinking, actually, my situation is a disaster, none of that advice is going to help, then you need help. You need to be contacting your doctor and asking for advice and contacting helplines urgently. Mental health services may be overloaded, but they still exist. If you can get private counselling, go for it, because that'll relieve the load on the overall system, and you've usually got a lot more control over it. When you're asking for counselling help, it sometimes takes a while to find the right counsellor. If you've waited for ages on the NHS and then you've not got a good match, it can be really, really demoralising. Whereas if you can, there may be someone in your life who, if you just say, look, I'm struggling just now and I'd like some counselling, they would help financially to help you find the right person quite quickly. So they're the things that I wish people had told me. And I don't think people really talk about how when you are a committed teacher, you find yourself in these places and how hard it is to cope. I was really lucky in my first year of teaching. I went into school one day and another teacher that I was struggling with made some decisions that were a nightmare for me, and I ended up shouting at that teacher in the yard in front of children. And I knew how out of order I was, and I just wandered over to the senior team area and waited to be reprimanded and dealt with in the appropriate way. And the deputy head who called me in sat me down, and instead of talking about what I'd just done, she just said, right, Rebecca, what is going on in your life? And I said, oh, nothing, I'm fine. I just need to take responsibility for this. And she said, no, what's going on in your life? And she could see that I wasn't okay, even though that wasn't something that I was acknowledging. And after we'd sat there for a while, I eventually said, my mum's gone into hospital today and I know it'll be for the last time. And she's just said, why are you here? And I said, because things are difficult at home and I don't want to destabilise that situation, and I've made the decision that I want to be here. And she just said, go, you need to go, and sent me home and told me to take several days off. And that was life-changing in every way. I needed that time with my mum. And it was such a small thing, looking back, to take that time off, but you just don't think it's possible. I learned so much about myself from my time with my mum, but also that defined what mattered to me in teaching. Being a teacher is the essence of being a senior teacher, is about having that wisdom and experience to have your hooves on the ground and know and understand people and respond to them on a deep level. So this learning experience as teachers together, I hope you see it as a really, really positive thing. Primary head teachers, they certainly have to deal with going in and out of these zones. It's something we need to learn to navigate as a community, and you should definitely look out for your head teachers in your senior team just now and be extra kind to them. I think that's the right place to stop. If you have any comments and suggestions, please share them with others. If you think this is useful, please share it with your colleagues. Take care.